5. I'm so excited. We're so close to 50.
We're also so close to 10,000 downloads. We're also so close to our 1-year anniversary.
I'm Katie.
I'm Garet.
And this is The Bar is Ankle High. I don't think we have any crazy housekeeping stuff.
No.
Yeah. Take it away. What are we talking about?
We're talking about depression today.
Mwah, mwah.
Yeah, if you heard last week's episode. You heard my setup for this week that Katie got real mad at me about.
Are we just talking about depression in general or depression and ADHD?
Depression in general.
Oh, okay.
It was more voluminous than I was expecting.
Okay.
So it turned into a lot of research about a lot of things. There's different types of depression, the different symptoms, other medical diagnoses that can kind of play into it, causes, and I also will touch on some treatments, including some like newer treatments that are coming out. So I'll try and do like a overview of all things depression.
Okay. But this will be a two-part?
I think it's probably going to be 2 parts. I will give the heads up that I did not touch on, trigger warning, the topic of suicide. I opted to kind of just leave that out. I just felt like this was heavy enough and we didn't need that additional heaviness. I do have some stats on it at the end if we want to include it, but I just tried to focus on depression itself and not some of the more grim
symptom
outcomes.
Yeah.
So we don't have any other housekeeping, so where are we jumping in? So depression. Depression is considered a mood disorder. It's also known as major depressive disorder or clinical depression. And I think anybody that's dealt with it in any capacity knows that it can affect all parts of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And can affect anyone. I mean, people in ideal circumstances, people in really difficult circumstances. It definitely does not discriminate. It can result from or lead to problems at school, at work, impact how you feel, how you think, how you behave. It can lead to other emotional problems, it can cause physical problems. And disabilities actually... Depression is actually the leading cause of disability in the world. It affects more than 280 million people worldwide, according to the World Health Organization.
That seems low.
You think so?
I mean, there's 7 billion
I guess,
people on the planet.
Yeah, I guess billions. Globally, they estimate that 1 in 20 adults has depression. And I mean, some people, it's one of those things like maybe you're going through a rough time, so you're
I think it's kind of like when we talk about like PTSD, like you can have it and like get through it,
right,
and be okay, or you just have PTSD and that's it, and like you can just have depression,
or maybe it comes back in 10 years, or something triggers it, or you have a baby and that triggers it to come back, or whatever it is, a major life change. The U.S. does shockingly have a higher rate of depression than the rest of the world.
Yeah, well. This place is a dumpster fire.
Yes. It's bad.
Just look at the dating pool.
Listen to our last episode for that. And pretty much any one of our episodes to hear about the dumpster fire. In the United States, about 1 in 6 adults will experience depression at some point in their lives.
Okay. That sounds more...
which I think is a better way to put it. Will experience it at some point in their lives. And that equals about 16 million people a year.
A year, wow.
Which in a country of 330 million people, like that's a lot of people. And you think about how many of those people are actually able to access treatment, acknowledge they are dealing with depression.
Yeah.
And have access to treatment.
Or, and that also goes into what we've talked about with ADHD, but like so often, especially women are misdiagnosed as depressed when it's an ADHD
or
thing.
anxious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So not that I'm saying that this is strictly misdiagnosis numbers, but if you think, okay, in my immediate family, So there's me, my mom, my brother. I mean, that's half of your thing. You're 1 in 6.
Yeah.
And like with all of my extended family, like I mean, it's a significant portion of anyone's family
Yeah. Oh yeah.
is
And
dealing with depression at some point,
right.
at least.
Right. And I think, and we'll talk about like different ways it manifests in people, but I know like me personally, I did not recognize that I was depressed. It took like how many winters of me going through the same cycle of being super miserable and really irritable and unhappy
Mm-hmm.
before I realized like, oh, this is depression.
Yeah.
So I think even because there are kind of like ADHD, there's like these stereotypical ways that something represents that sometimes having the space and awareness to recognize that you have those symptoms or how they're manifesting in you.
It's really hard because like my direct experience with depression was as a consequence of my PTSD. But even so, once I went on medication for it, it was like the medication like worked almost immediately, and it was like you're like when you go to a movie theater and they dim the lights,
Mm-hmm.
and then at the end of the movie the lights stay dim, and then you walk out into the hallway and you're like blinded, but
Yes.
the hallway lights are not bright. That's how it felt. Like
Yeah.
you didn't realize that you were in this really dark fucking room
Oh, yeah.
until somebody turned on the light, or like it was on a dimmer switch and somebody just like flipped it up.
Yeah.
And you just don't realize it. So like when you're just fumbling around, because during the movie you can see what you need to see.
Because your eyes have adjusted.
Right.
Yeah.
So like you can, there's those little lights on the stairs, and
Right.
you can get down the stairs, you can function, you
Yep.
can get through. So it's really hard to get to the point to even like ask for help, I feel like, because so much of it is workable in a way where
Yeah.
you can, still go to work and, go grocery shopping and take care of your pet or whatever. But once you actually do get treated for it, you're like, holy shit.
Well, and you
That
realize
was
it's
bad.
like, I have these things that I have to take care of. And
Yeah.
I have to take care of them whether I'm sick, not sick, feeling good, feeling bad.
Mhm.
Like, no matter what's going on, like, I still have to maintain my job. I still have to take care of my pets. I
Mhm.
still have to take care of myself. Like, still have to bathe. Like, all of these things that, like, you have for yourself as a minimum level of operation.
Yes.
And it's like, well, I'm still doing those things.
Right, yeah.
I may not enjoy it, but I'm still doing it. And I know it wasn't until it was like a Saturday morning, and it was like late November, and I was miserable. I was just like snippy and like just pissy, and and I'm sitting there and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
It's my day off. Like, why am I feeling like this? And that's when I was like, oh, I think I need to call my doctor.
Mm.
And was trying to explain to my spouse why I felt so overwhelmed by everything.
Right.
And couldn't even articulate it without crying, which is like so unlike me. Like normally if I take a minute, I'm like, okay, I have this going on, and this has me feeling overwhelmed. Not even being able to articulate it. And then being on medication for a week, and I felt like I had been drowning before, and now I could keep my head above water.
Yes.
And it was just like I could take a deep breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa.
It's such a relief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like, I still can't get over the difference. And now that I'm going through a period of time where there is so much flux and there's so many decisions to be made, and it's like I keep comparing it to like standing on the beach and you're watching a hurricane coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and like, the hurricane's coming. You can only, you can put the boards up on your windows. You can do all these things to prepare, but like, you still don't know how bad the hurricane's going to be. So you're just like standing there waiting. That's kind of where we're at right now. It's like just waiting. There's going to be a major life change, but there's nothing you can really do now.
Yeah. Just put the life jacket on and
Wait.
tie yourself to a tree, I guess. I don't know.
So knowing that I'm
What
like,
do people in Florida do? They tie themselves to trees, right?
yeah, I'm sure,
Yeah.
climb on the roof.
Yeah.
I'm able to keep things in perspective and have this acknowledgement of like, okay, that's figure outable. It's not for me to take care of today.
Mm-hmm.
I'll get to it. It'll come up and I'll be able to figure it out as I need to. I don't need to have the answer right now. And just like being able to like take things as they come, like neurotypical people do all the time. Like people that don't have anxiety do all the time.
Right.
Which is like, Sometimes I take a minute and I'm like, wow, that is amazing. That all it took was like, at this point, 25 milligrams of sertraline to make it where I could be somebody who can use perspective more effectively
Yeah.
and can keep their head above water and like not constantly spiral about things. That's not to say that I don't sometimes still. There's still some things of like, sustained stress that will cause me to spiral or have a rough day, but it's not universal.
Yeah, ask me about my move.
Yes. So yeah, obviously we know that depression is not just like a bout of the blues. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not something you can snap out of. And sometimes it requires long-term treatment. I mean, the good thing is depression's highly treatable.
Mm-hmm.
Like I want to say, it comes up somewhere, but I want to say like 80 to 90% of people who deal with depression and get it treated experience some kind of relief. Even if
Wow.
you're going from like severe to mild or moderate, there's still like an alleviation of some of the worst symptoms.
That's a huge statistic. Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
But it is also, despite it being highly treatable, it's still like a very complex thing to treat because the causes vary, the treatments vary. There are different types of depression. So I guess they now call postpartum depression peripartum depression. I don't really know what maybe because it's not just necessarily post, like you can wind up with PPD like during pregnancy.
Okay.
Stay tuned because we are going to have an episode or two on postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, which is obviously depression during pregnancy following birth. Seasonal depression, seasonal affective disorder, which we talked about in episode 22, which is depression triggered by the changes of season. Bipolar disorder falls under a type of depression.
Oh, really?
Which there's like multiple kinds of bipolar disorder.
I knew that there were multiple kinds. I didn't realize that it was like a subcategory of.
Yeah, it's like a mood disorder that like falls under this umbrella.
Oh, okay.
It was previously called manic depression, where you have periods of extreme highs, the mania and the extreme lows of depression.
Okay.
There's persistent depressive disorder, which used to be called dysthymia, I think, which is defined as low mood occurring for at least 2 years. And it's paired with at least two other symptoms of depression. So I think that's just like a more persistent long-term depression.
Okay.
Premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which we talked about in episode 38, which is associated with hormonal changes that come with menstruation. And there's also disruptive mood dysregulation disorder, which is a condition that affects children and adolescents, where they have persistent irritability, anger, and frequent intense temper outbursts. So there's like some different offshoots of like this core clinical depression diagnosis.
Was it bipolar where you get depressed and you have two other symptoms? Or no,
that was persistent depressive disorder.
Okay. What are the others? Are you going to go into each one?
No.
Okay. What are the other, like, what are two other symptoms?
I'll go over. I'm doing the symptoms right now.
Oh, okay.
That would be helpful, wouldn't it? So depression symptoms can vary from mild to severe. You have to experience symptoms for at least 2 weeks, and there has to be a change in your previous level of functioning in order for there to be a diagnosis of depression.
Okay.
There's a lot of symptoms. And like I was saying, it's going to represent differently for different people.
It's a spectrum like everything else on this podcast.
What was that Christmas song? Every time I think about it, I like shake my head.
I was doing a Celine Dion impersonation for PK the other day, but changing all the lyrics to be about our animals. And
we do that all the time, yeah.
Mm-hmm. He didn't like it. Yeah. He got really annoyed with it, but it was funny because he was getting so annoyed.
Oh, then I'm like,
Yeah. Oh, I was fully in.
My spouse and I are both encouraged by that. So when the one person finds something annoying, then it's like, well, now I got to
It
do it
was
more.
that song, 'Cause I'm Your Lady and You're My Man. But I was like doing it with like the Celine Dion, like,
Muppety sounding
yeah,
voice.
like the, like, I don't know if it's her French accent or something, but like the way she like trembles her voice at the end of words. Yeah. He was like, you've got to stop.
Rude.
I was like, 'cause I'm your Coco.
We do that all the time. All the time. I'm trying to think of the one that we sing about Reggie all the time. It'll come to me at some point. Some really inopportune time where we're talking about something really upsetting.
Probably, yeah.
And I'll be like, oh, I remember what it was.
Yeah, I mean, we did that with How to Survive a Bear Attack the last time, so I'm sure we'll have some weird tangent here.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. So symptoms. Obviously feeling sad, having a depressed mood, loss of interest or pleasure in activities you once enjoyed, changes in appetite, either, weight loss, weight gain, unrelated to dieting, difficulty sleeping, or you're waking up early in the morning, or you're oversleeping, you're feeling fatigued, decreased energy, and just like kind of generally feeling slowed down. Let's see. Increase, this I thought was interesting. Increase in purposeless physical activity. So like inability to sit still, pacing, hand wringing, or having slowed movements or speech.
Wow.
Enough to where like other people are noticing it. Like having that kind of just delayed affect. Feeling worthless or guilty, difficulty thinking, concentrating, or making decisions, which I definitely get that, like, there's like a gif of a guy sitting at a desk and he gets frustrated. He just like takes his hands and just starts like flipping everything over on the desk. And that's exactly how I feel when I'm like that. Like I just don't care. I don't care. Thoughts of death or suicide, persistent, sad, anxious, or empty mood, feelings of hopelessness or pessimism, feeling irritable, frustrated, or restless, and physical like aches, pains, headaches, cramps, digestive problems, and things that don't really have a clear physical cause that you can't kind of get them to go away with things that would normally work, like normal remedies. Chronic pain can be another symptom of depression. At the same time, if you're just like continually in a state of discomfort, you can also become depressed. So it's kind of like a chicken egg situation where it's like, am I depressed and experiencing chronic pain, or is my chronic pain causing me to be depressed?
Right.
So there's a big link between those two things.
Does it matter for purposes of treatment in that case?
I don't think so, because I think they're still going to treat
like it's
the
still
depression,
yeah.
right? And in extreme cases, there can also be hallucinations.
Whoa.
Yeah, like when you're like really in the pits of it.
Jeez.
In some cases, there are mental health symptoms that experience or that appear as physical problems. So, racing heart, tightened chest, having headaches, digestive issues. Men are more likely to see a doctor about the physical symptoms than they are the emotional ones.
Yeah.
So obviously, like we said, people that are going to get depression, everyone.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter your age, race, gender. These are some other stats. I don't know how well it jives with my stats I had before because it's from a different source, but an estimated.
Say that a little bit more clearly because we're talking into microphones.
I'm just a little concerned that someone's going to fact check me here and be like, that doesn't jive with because numbers are not my strength. This is from a different source, but
okay.
An estimated 3.8% of the population experience depression, including 5% of adults, 4% among men, 6% among women, and 5.7% of adults older than 60 years old. So, depression disproportionately affects more women than men. There was a study done in 2020 by the American Journal of Psychiatry that reported about twice as many women experience depression as men. Which, if you've listened to our hormone
I
episodes,
was gonna say, like, that makes sense because we have all these crazy fluctuations, like,
right,
throughout our life. So either when you're in your childbearing years,
right,
quote unquote, when you're menstruating, or once you hit menopause, or both, and then whatever happens with actually
yeah,
gestating and having a kid and that postpartum period
yeah.
and all of that. Not to mention all the shit that we have to put up with in the
Tune
rest
into
of
our
our
previous
lives.
episode
Yeah.
for some of
See
that.
episodes 1 through 42.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, it totally tracks that. Like we were saying in those hormone episodes, women or AFAB
Yeah.
individuals, I guess, you're never really on solid ground.
Right. Yeah.
Like from the time you hit, I mean, depending on the person, like I started hitting puberty when I was like 8 or 9,
Hmm.
until the time you're like probably in your 50s. So the bulk
Yeah.
of your I mean, more than half of your life at least.
Yeah.
Um, the ground is kind of constantly shifting. You're going through these different stages that have very the symptoms of all of these different phases impact mental health. I mean, your self-esteem, how you're feeling about yourself.
It's just so profound, the effects that
It's so pervasive.
our regular hormones without any hormonal disruption, like a thyroid issue or an endocrine system issue. Um, Without all of that, it's so profound how much we deal with without really complaining.
And then that is true. Like that's with that's just looking at hormones and different
Correct.
phases. That's without life stressors that can impact the hormones.
Right.
It's
And
without other physical problems that can impact the hormones.
and we're trying to keep up with men in general
Yep.
who don't have those same types of hormone fluctuations past puberty.
Right.
And then
And if they do, it's like a very short term.
right, yeah. Again, like for a thyroid issue or an endocrine issue, they're having something, there's a medical
Or they
explanation.
shot a gun and it caused
Right.
a rush of testosterone.
Yeah, their cock is made out of concrete. And then
I was like, is she gonna? Yep.
oh man, I'll take any opportunity to say that phrase. It is the funniest fucking line in a movie I've ever heard in my life. It cracks me up every time. Um, but baseline, we're going through all these fluctuations and trying, obviously I'm a proponent for equity in all things, but in trying to compete with our male counterparts. And that's not even, I mean, I'm saying that as a white woman, but like as we discussed with Jamie a few weeks ago, the what Black Americans and people of color have to deal with their generational trauma that actually affects their DNA, right. And then having to compete and work for that equity and work to be seen and heard. And then you throw in life stressors and things that are individual to you. Like, you had said your grandma passed away. Like that's individual to you and to your family. But like nobody else around you is like not it wasn't like grandparents die day. Like nobody else was going through that. Right. So then, you're dealing with these things that it's not like you wear like a sign around your neck saying this is what I'm going through. So when you have these periods of depression, it can feel like you can feel super isolated because it's like, well, I'm just really fucking sad and I don't have a quote unquote reason to point to as to like the reason that I'm sad or the reason that I'm, my home is a mess because I can't clean it. I just cannot clean it. My hair, I have to keep my hair really, really short and basically buzz my head because I cannot brush my hair. And to explain why you can't brush your hair sounds crazy. Like, why can't you? Well, I don't have a reason. Like, my arms work, but I just can't.
Yeah.
And it's,
And sometimes depression. I have to, like, think about those episodes that we did on the hormones, and I'm like, okay, this is a period of time.
Mhm.
where you're experiencing. And I really do feel like the Zoloft has helped me from experiencing these like big hormonal fluctuations that I would normally be feeling a lot more.
Yeah.
But I still have to be like, okay, give yourself a little grace here. You're still doing like X, Y, and Z. Like you're working full time and you're doing this and you have this going on. Like sometimes I have to, I'm like, and it turns into, and we talk about this all the time. We definitely talked about it with Jamie, but like I'm turning it into like you just need to get your shit together and like do some laundry. Like, no, you're tired because I'm like growing a person right now.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of energy. And I'm also, working a full-time job and we're doing the podcast. Like there are things.
And you have ADD.
Right. And my brain, which by the way, we had talked about how some people are like, it makes it better when you're pregnant. No, my brain is wherever my ADHD normally puts me on like a functional scale, I am like at 25% of that level. My brain is shot, and it's just one of those things I'm like, this is normal. I'm tired. My brain's not really working, and I'm just kind of going with it. Like, there's nothing I can really do to fix it, so we're just going to have to ride it out and just letting it go. And I think having those, that's been a big growth thing for me, like having those, like, you need to be nice to yourself, and this isn't a personal failing that you're feeling tired, you're just tired.
Yeah. I mean, the week of the move, I went to bed. I was in bed by 8 p.m., if not earlier, every night that week.
That's every night of my life because it's the only place I'm comfortable.
Well, I was like, my whole body hurt. I was going up a billion flights of stairs every day, carrying shit, hauling it in, moving it. I was painting. I was moving out somebody and then moving myself in, trying to coordinate everybody's schedules and make sure everything was on, in control. By the end of the day, like, I went to a doctor's appointment for something and, they were like, oh, well, are you having any joint pain? And I was like, well, I constantly have low back pain. Like, I go to a chiropractor for that. And then, like, I said it and I was like, my knees are fucking killing me right now. Yeah. But I was like, I can't. And like I said, like, well, my knees hurt. However, I've also been doing all of these things the last 5 days. So, like, I can't say that my baseline is hurting knees. However, boy, am I fucking feeling it.
Yeah.
But it's that thing where I was like, yeah, I'm just going to bed. Like, I'm not picking the fight of my bedtime right now because I'm so overwhelmed with all these other things.
Am I fighting myself?
And it's the thing of like, well, if I stay up, I can do a little bit more. Yep. I can get a little bit more done. And I was like, yeah, but like, who fucking cares?
I did that. Remember the other day we were texting and I had sent Katie like a picture of what we had gotten done on the nursery. And she's like, wow, you must be exhausted. And I was like, I am. And I was like, and then I tried to fool myself into thinking I could do X, Y, and Z. And then I did those. I was like, I sent the clown emoji like I'm an idiot, right? I think I can do these things. Then I went and did them. So I acknowledged I was too tired to do them. I had done enough that day. I needed to rest. And then thought about it and did them anyway. So don't be like me.
So when you say you need to be nice to yourself.
Sometimes
what
I'm more
exactly did you
than
mean by
others. That? And I am trying to just like utilizing less a lot, but just like little bits at a time. Like, okay, let's just get this done today. Like there's some days where I'm like, I finish working and I want to just lay. And I do. I just lay there. I'm like, I'm just so tired.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to let myself lay here.
Yeah. And it's that thing where it's like, okay, this is a temporary situation. Yeah. Like, obviously you'll have a child, which is less temporary, but,
that is significantly less temporary, yes.
But, like, I had to do that with the move where I was like, this is temporary. It's okay that I'm tired.
Yeah.
But, like, at some point, something was going on, and I think PK, like, or my mom asked me something like, well, what happens if the electrician can't finish it this week? And I was like, honestly, I'm not worrying about, like,
my brain can only handle the 10,000 things that's already.
And I fully said, I was like, I don't have the bandwidth to consider that eventuality.
Yes.
But, like, if it happens, it happens. Like, whatever it is, it is. Yeah. Like, I'm done trying to figure this out. I've figured out everything that I possibly can figure out.
Yes.
Whatever happens at this point, I've shoved it over the Niagara Falls and it's on its way down.
Well, because it's
Whatever
like,
happens, happens.
I figured out these 50 things.
Yeah.
I can't also have 3 contingency plans for all of these 50 things.
And I won't.
Right.
And it's that kind of thing where I'm like, and my mom kept saying like, well, when you get a bee in your bonnet, you're like super committed. And I was like, well, gee, I wonder where I get that from, lady. But also like at the same time, I'm like, yeah, because at this point I've done enough where I'm like, no, this is how it will happen. Like I was like frustrated enough.
And realistically, normally that's how it happens.
Well,
It's gonna go fine.
Yeah, and I, did the Katie version of ADD thing where I was like, I'll just force it through and, yeah, I got stuck in a ladder for a minute, but
I laugh. I tried to carry a table down the stairs and
God,
got stuck halfway down the stairs, and I thought to myself, this was a really bad idea. I don't know if I could actually get this. I did.
Should have just like flipped it upside down and slid it down. Like what's his face in Home Alone?
It's got those drop sides to it, so I really couldn't do anything. I was just like fully stuck. I was fully stuck halfway down the stairs.
I truly thought that I was going to end up breaking my upper arm at the elbow when I got stuck in that ladder because I couldn't lift it up and I was on the stairs leaning down. So there was like nowhere for me to go. And if I leaned back, I would put more pressure on my elbow. I fully thought I was going to break my arm. And then I would have to explain to EMT.
Yes.
Because once I broke it, I knew I could get it out. But
yes. That's what I thought to myself. I'm going to have to explain to somebody that my dumbass tried to carry a table down the stairs in almost my 3rd trimester, home alone with no cell phone on me.
Yeah.
Like,
my cell
that was
phone,
a
I
good
could
idea.
see where my phone was, but I also
That's
have
almost worse.
my Hey SIRI function turned off
Yep.
because I grew up with siblings, and so I don't trust anybody around my phone.
Yeah. I mean,
So there's no way, like, I couldn't just scream at my phone.
anytime it shows up on my computer or phone, I'm like, get the fuck out of here.
I have it so I can hold the button down and do it, but
Yeah.
so which is why having an earbud in would have been helpful, but I didn't have an earbud in because I was just painting. So why would I need an earbud in?
I mean, we're both making good choices, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, be nice to yourself, which we say a lot, but really, like, when you
work with a spotter,
yeah,
I guess.
check in with somebody, and that's why I was literally like, I'm home alone. Nobody knows I'm doing this. In fact, I was specifically advised not to do it.
I was gonna say, like, remember when you were like 7 weeks pregnant and everybody in your life panicked that you went on stairs?
Yes, don't pick anything up.
You went
Don't think about picking
steps
things up.
outdoors, and everybody around you was like,
Be
"Don't
careful!
do it! You can't do that on your own."
Yep.
At least they're not icy.
I mean, the good thing is, when my mom gives me a hard time about doing something I probably shouldn't be doing, I remind her of all the things that she did while she was pregnant with me that she also shouldn't have been doing, and she's like, "Yeah, you're right. I did do that."
Mm-hmm.
And then we have a truce.
So this is what happens when you raise a strong, independent woman who don't need no man, is that she grows up to be a strong, independent woman who
does things that
gets
are slightly
stuck,
reckless.
but then will get out of being stuck.
I swear to God, I got to the bottom of the stairs with that table. I put it down, and I was like, like fully sweating, gasping for air, like also thanking baby Jesus I did not fall down a full flight of stairs.
Yeah.
But anyway,
Reasonable.
Yeah, don't do that.
Did I cut you off on your symptoms list?
No, we were dipping into who gets depression.
Oh, yeah.
And talking about different differences of
the women.
different differences.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, words.
Distinguishments.
Distinguishments. But yeah, obviously, like, if you've listened to our hormone episodes or, experienced any hormone fluctuations, you know how hard it can be because it's not only physical symptoms, but you're also experiencing mental and emotional symptoms that can be really disruptive to everyday life.
Yeah.
So
I'm almost envious of people who get the physical symptoms because I would be the same way. Like, that's what would get me to the doctor, is if I was like physically just like achy all the time and like couldn't explain it.
yeah, I get the fatigue.
Yeah, me too.
Like, just never feeling like I'm awake,
Mm-hmm.
never feeling like I'm like ready to go or up, or it just like I'm, remember what was was there a commercial for a depression medication and it was like a little gray cloud or
Mm-hmm.
something?
I think it was Zoloft.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah.
I just feel gray all the time, like everything's gray.
Yeah.
Um, research shows that 1/3 of women undergo a major depressive episode at some point in their life.
Whoa.
1/3. Um,
Is there like a time period for how long an episode lasts?
no, they didn't give like any specific data. I mean, I'm assuming if
I mean,
that
that's at least 2
persistent
weeks,
thing
I
is
guess.
2 years,
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's got to be somewhere between, you know, a real small period of time between 2 weeks and 2 years.
Casual. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think something that is important to keep in mind with some of these statistics is men may be less likely to recognize
Mm-hmm.
depressive symptoms, talk about the symptoms, seek help for their feelings or emotional problems.
Which means talk to the men you know.
Right, because
Check in on them.
they're at a greater risk of being undiagnosed or either not treated or undertreated
Yeah.
for what they're experiencing. And yeah, like talk about how you're feeling with people.
And you know, if your male friend says to you like, "Yeah, I just couldn't get it together to do that," and they say that to you, you know, a couple times in a row
Or they
about
keep
different
flaking on
things.
plans or something.
Yeah, like that's a sign. Like have that conversation with them. I think
Mhm.
it's, you know, that's a way to show up for your friends
Mm-hmm.
that is undervalued. I think a lot of people, I know we're not really going to discuss it, but like once there's like like a celebrity who takes their own life,
Mm-hmm.
or dies by suicide, there's this discussion of like, oh, check in on your friends, but like check in on them when they're like
Yeah.
flaking on you.
Yeah. I know,
Because
like, I have a tendency to approach it from wow, you've got this and this, like all of these things going on. Like,
Yeah.
I would be feeling really overwhelmed or I would be feeling really this way.
Mhm.
To try and, like, open that door a little bit. So, even if all they're going to do is be like, yeah, I'm feeling like that, I may being like, that's terrible. Let me know if you need anything, if I can help you with blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's like just enough where people feel like, okay,
And if
I've been
you're
seen.
Yeah, and I think it's also helpful. It's certainly been helpful for people I know who have told me they've done this, but who have said to their friends like, "Yeah, you know, I went on this medicine, like I just take, you know, this much Lexapro a day, and it really like changed things for me. Like it's really not that high of a dose, and
Yeah.
it like totally made it a lot easier for me to like get through the day."
I could be a Zoloft commercial right now.
Yeah, probably.
I've probably
Although they would
said-
never put a Prego in a commercial.
No, they would not.
They'd be like, "We don't test it on
We're not
pregnancies."
sure. I mean,
You just have to hold up your baby at the end, like
She's fine.
Rafiki in Lion King.
Simba.
I made this. She good.
She's fine. She's not depressed.
She dressed like Mouse. Garrett got the cutest animal shirts for her.
They're really
kid.
cute. They're really adorable. I mean, like in 6 months, not experiencing these like spikes
Yeah.
of mood and you know, feeling irritable all the time. And
Well, and I mean, you know, your body's not your own right now,
Right.
and so I think that's certainly as somebody who's never been pregnant, I feel like that has to contribute to the emotional dysregulation basically for when
yeah.
you have these periods of uncomfortability
Yep.
because you can't get comfortable. Like there's nothing
Yeah.
you can do. It's not like, oh, I'm sitting in a weird position, like my foot fell asleep, I'll just move and get comfortable. Like it doesn't matter, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not like your belly's detachable.
No.
And so there's like an aspect of it that's like, you know, your body isn't your own. Everything's changing physically, and like your clothes don't fit, your food, like you can't eat what you want to
don't
eat.
look like yourself. You don't feel like yourself. And I think also like
Especially like the bending thing. Like what a what a punch in the face, because like you
is.
just can't bend over normally. It's just like,
and then when I do, when I stand up, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. it's
yeah, you vagaled yourself.
Oh, for sure. Like, and I always kind of had that with my blood pressure medication, but now it is like intense. And it is, so you almost have to think of it like it's a microcosm of
Mm.
hormonal changes you go through in your life. Like, no sooner do I'm like, okay, new symptom, okay, couple weeks, I'm like, I've dealt with it, like now I know how to handle it. Another one comes along and it's
Yeah.
like the ground is just constantly shifting. So it is hard to like find any kind of like settled feeling or grounded feeling because it's just like it's just constantly changing.
I mean, yeah. I mean, it all happens in the span of 9 or 10 months,
Yeah.
which is fast.
I remember with like first trimester when I was like in the pits of
Fatigue.
being fatigued, but also constantly feeling like I'm about to throw up.
Mm.
I never
Yeah, you
actually
had that a
threw up,
lot. No, you didn't.
but I would just sit there and be like, oh my, like I feel like any second I'm gonna get the mouth sweats and I'm gonna throw up, and just constantly being at that point, laying in bed and looking at the ceiling at like 1 o'clock in the morning and being like, what if I feel this way? What if I have hyperemesis and I feel like this my whole pregnancy? Like that's almost a year of my life. I'm gonna spend either throwing up every day or feeling like, and I mean, I know people that have had that.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Kate Middleton had that.
Oh, did she?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a terrible story actually. She had it, was hospitalized when she was pregnant with Prince George. A local radio station called the hospital, had corgi noises in the background, pretended to be the Queen, spoke to a nurse and was like, "Oh, we just want to talk to Catherine. You know, it's just the Queen checking up on her." Patched them through the room, and the nurse ended up taking her own life because she got death threats from people for divulging personal, like where the princess was. Yeah, fucking crazy. I can't believe you didn't know that.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Wild.
That's horrific.
And then so then the palace had to like issue a statement where they were like, this is not that serious, you guys. Like, yes, we want privacy because she's in the fucking hospital, sick with pregnancy sickness, but like, what the fuck? Like, you didn't need to like bully this poor nurse into taking her own life.
Tabloids
They're wild. I mean, I don't know if even that was the tabloids. It was like, because of course then they knew what hospital she worked at and all that stuff. Yeah, it was bad.
Wow, that's horrific.
Yeah.
I would have preferred our bear facts, I think.
I'm sorry.
Over that.
Maybe we'll do a deep dive on British tabloid bullshit for Patreon.
Yeah, our British listeners can.
We have a good amount of British listeners.
Yeah,
There are.
chime in. Let us know. Give us stories.
But please don't get us sued because your laws are scary.
Yeah, I don't want to. I'm not up for that. We've already had.
We can't
IRS
afford.
issue.
Yeah, we can't afford
can't.
Amal Clooney. Okay, we just can't.
Turns out we're way better at podcasting than we are at taxes. So depression can look different person to person, but in men and women, how they express those symptoms and the behaviors and how they cope with them. Men are more likely to seem like angry or irritable instead of like sad and withdrawn. They're also more likely to use alcohol or drugs as a coping strategy, which I'm assuming most people know, but alcohol is a depressant and is a really bad coping strategy for depression. Yeah. May seem like it's working in the hour.
I think like with any substance abuse, that when you get that, quote unquote high, even though alcohol is a depressant, you don't feel the thing that was making you use that in the first place.
But it's still there.
It's still there, and you're I had this conversation with somebody recently who was needing to come to terms with their use of weed. Mm-hmm. And I said to them, if you were, because they said, well, like on the weekends I'd wake up, and they said that they were trying to limit their smoking to Fridays after work and just Saturdays, and to not smoke on like school nights, basically. They're not in school. They're working.
We still, even though we're adults, everything is a school night.
Yeah. If you have to work the next day. Yeah.
Monday through Thursday.
Yeah. Sunday through Thursday.
Jesus, Lord. Anyway,
We get there eventually.
third try.
Jesus Christ. But I said to them, and because they said, well, I was, waking up on Saturday, which I think that they were kind of editing their statement, but they said that they were waking up on Saturday, and the first thing they did was take a hit of their vape pen.
Woo!
And I said to them, if you were doing that with a fifth of liquor,
Yeah.
nobody would tolerate it.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone around you would say, you need help. That's not acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, well, yeah, you're right. And I was like, that's because it's substance abuse.
Right.
And just because it's weed, like, it's no different in my mind.
Mm-hmm. No, I mean, if you're depending on it on a daily basis,
it's a chemical dependency.
right.
So, and obviously substance abuse is like super high for people with ADHD,
Mm-hmm.
especially pre-diagnosis,
Mm-hmm.
even post-diagnosis if you're not actively taking steps to treat your ADHD, whether you're choosing to use medicine or just CBT or anything. But I think that there's also that we have this like tendency where it's like alcoholism is like super not okay, you need to get help. But for weed, because it's a depressant and it just doesn't quote unquote do any harm,
Mm-hmm.
you're not sharing needles and
Right.
you're not necessarily at risk for other things. Not that it's going to stop you from getting behind the wheel if you're
Well,
making poor choices
right.
otherwise.
And it's also not causing like a hangover.
Yeah.
It's not going to cause the same like withdrawal. So I think it is a little bit more insidious.
Yeah.
When
It's
people
easier to
do have a
overlook.
tendency, yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think, yeah, for sure. I know a lot of people that are regular smokers will do tolerance breaks
Mm-hmm.
where you're giving your body like a chance to kind of clear.
Yeah.
And it also keeps you from like just upping the ante all the time. And it's like more and more and more.
Yeah.
I know like prior to getting pregnant, I was a regular weed smoker, but very small amounts. And when I was noticing it took more than a very small amount for me to feel something, it was time for a tolerance break.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a month or two of not smoking anything, letting that kind of clear and like getting back to your baseline and then like reintroducing it and cycling through like that, which I think it's good to kind of give your brain that
Yeah.
ability to clear. Not that it like, I don't feel like it's not like a hangover that you get, but I think there's like a certain level of fogginess that comes with it sometimes.
Oh, I would say so for sure. And it's the kind of thing, just like with alcohol, like when you start, your inhibitions are lowered and it's very easy to have a second puff.
Oh,
and
yeah.
just like it's easier to have that second drink. And, before you know it, you're a puddle on your couch and
Your
your
legs don't work.
Right, like you're just can't get out of the pool no matter how hard you try. Or something.
Something like that. Not that I know.
To be fair, there was no easing up to that. That was just it.
We just went from fine to legs don't work.
Went to 4 hours in traffic to my legs are sandbags.
Yes.
And I can't set up this camera to save my life.
5 stars. So yeah, it's definitely, I think, and I mean, I've even gone through times where I had a lot of stressors going on and I noticed that I was drinking too much.
I've done that too.
Where, I'm having like multiple like big glasses of wine at night and I was like, ooh, you know what? This is too much. It's like more than I normally do.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is drugs and alcohol. I think is definitely an important thing to like check in with yourself.
Yeah.
And I think
And it's an uncomfortable check-in.
oh yeah,
It really is.
Yeah.
Like
It makes you feel icky
yes.
when you're thinking about it.
Yeah, because it feels, and it's not, but an addiction, like having to say I might be getting addicted to something feels like a moral failing.
Yeah.
Not just a chemical reaction in your brain
Right.
that is fucking with your ability to differentiate whether you need something
Right.
or not.
Well, and it's like I have mentioned this before, but my therapist talking about like, having ADHD and having anxiety and having these like very like short, quick brain waves, and something like drugs or alcohol slowing those down to like a normal level, there's very much, I would smoke weed and feel like, oh, okay, like now I can like take a deep breath and relax, and I don't, my brain is not racing.
Mm-hmm.
So when she said that, I was like, oh shit, that totally makes sense.
It's like
That's
a
so
stim.
accurate.
It's just a chemical stim.
Yes. Yeah, it's just like forcing you to, it's like when you're driving with your car in a specific gear, and you're not going to be able to like get your RPM, like you can't get to that next level. It's like keeping you at a more sedate, which I think for at certain times like is helpful to people, like when you need something to like kind of like bring you back down.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that there is also a reasonable objection to reliance on pharmaceuticals and the objections to the pharmaceutical industry. However, I I don't know that anybody has had to go into treatment for an addiction to Zoloft.
Right.
So I think, to that extent, like I understand that there are objections to pharmaceutical companies and the capitalist drive behind it. However, it's not like a barbiturate, generally speaking,
Right.
that you're on or something. And even those are like heavily titrated and watched by your doctors. And so it's just something where I'm like, yeah, I would rather know. Also, I would rather know I'm always getting 5 milligrams of Lexapro a day.
It's measurable.
Yeah.
It's precise. It's predictable. And like, I think anybody that's taking it seriously, that you're making an effort to take the pill at the same time every day, and you're taking it with food, or like however it is that you're taking it, that you're making an effort to be consistent with it. And there's a very big difference between like recreational use of something and being dependent on something, and having the ability to kind of check in with yourself.
Yeah.
And I would never say to myself like, oh, I think I have a problem. I would say this is too much.
Yeah.
Because if I said something was a problem, then I would spiral. So if I just say, okay, this is too much, we need to do less. And even if I'm just cutting back a little bit,
yeah,
that's an improvement.
Oh, totally. And when I do that with alcohol, because I don't really smoke weed or even do edibles very much.
Because her legs turn into sandbags.
Yeah.
It's a chronic issue.
But when I do that with alcohol, because I drink wine, I'll have my glass of wine, and then if I rinse it and put it in the dishwasher, it's done.
Yeah.
I won't typically get another cup to have more with. So if it's done, that's it.
Yep.
And it's easier for me to like ease down and kind of control if I don't want to have any more.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's definitely something that I think as people with ADD, we have to be aware of.
Yes.
The tendency for that to fall into.
Oh yeah. Not to mention if you have like a family history of substance abuse.
Yeah.
If maybe you just happen to be around people that drink really heavily or party a lot.
Which makes me so uncomfortable when I'm around people who do that. And I don't know what changed because I went to house parties in college.
Oh yeah.
But somewhere along the line, I'm like, you guys, this is like...
And when you're like 25, 26, and
Yeah.
you're leaving work and you're going home and having a couple glasses of wine, you're not really thinking twice about it. And it wasn't until I got older and I started thinking about the surveys that you take, like at your physical.
Oh, yeah.
They're asking like how many drinks you have on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I have to think about like, wow, that's really different when you think about on a weekly level versus a daily level.
Yeah.
And now I notice like when I watch TV shows or movies, I'm like, wow, they drink a lot. Things that like I never would have noticed before, but now that I just like don't do those things a lot.
What always gets me is when people do shots. I have no interest.
Yeah.
We did for our like podcast launch party.
You want to see Katie's boyfriend get really frustrated with me? He hands me a shot of whiskey and I was sipping it because I am too goddamn old to be shooting a shot like that.
But it was like 2 shots. One was like, it was like whiskey and orange juice and then something else.
Something,
But it was
yeah.
supposed to taste like breakfast, like
Yeah.
pancakes with syrup
Yeah.
and an orange juice, something.
Yeah.
And so you had like the idea was that you took both of these in quick succession to get the flavor.
Yeah.
And so Garrett's sipping it and you were like, tastes like whiskey. And I was like, yeah, you just gotta
Like, oh my God. All right. So you're supposed to drink it fast, like all at once. And I'm like, yeah, no, I get that, but I'm old now and I can't.
it was before Garrett was pregnant, to be clear.
Oh yeah.
Obviously.
There was also a picture I posted on social media. It was actually from my grandmother's service and the whole family did a shot.
Oh yeah.
Somebody had ordered a pickleback shot for somebody else and they refused to drink it.
Fair, because that tastes like
so-
hot cock. It's disgusting.
That's a shot that I will do. Pickleback shots.
Absolutely not. I was dating somebody, rewind to our dating episode. We went to a bar downtown somewhere that is like notorious for their pickleback shots, and I had never done one before. And so we did that, and I did it, and I was like, oh, that tastes like cock, and I like screamed it, and he was horrified. He got so mad at me for ruining it
that's
and
so
embarrassing him. Yeah, and I was like, we're in the middle of like a dive bar.
Right.
Like, who gives a shit?
I am
We're not in like a
hysterical.
fine dining restaurant. It was so bad. I was like, bleh, it was terrible. Like
Oh,
Jameson
I
and pickleback. Ugh.
love pickleback shots.
Gross. Absolutely gross.
So I had shared a funny picture on social media and had to clarify that I was not doing a shot of alcohol.
Did your grandma like picklebacks or something?
Pickle
Like, why
juice.
was that the shot choice?
No, somebody was getting whiskey. And then it came up like, oh my God, have you had a pickleback shot?
Oh, okay.
And everybody said it was disgusting.
Yeah, it is.
Except for me and my spouse. So
Yeah, well.
I was like, oh, nobody's
Weirdos.
going to do the pickle juice. I'll shoot the pickle juice, which I don't recommend on its own. Not really my thing.
I mean, especially for somebody with high blood pressure.
Yeah.
I don't know
Shot
that.
of sodium while I'm pregnant.
Mm.
So we're going to end this episode now, and we're going to pick up next week. We're going to talk some more about different people that are more susceptible to depression, how depression affects kids and teens, some health problems associated with it, causes, things like that. So tune in next week
Cool.
for another episode.
And in the meantime, if you want more of this in different
How
ways,
could you not?
you can join our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarsanklehigh. We have 3 levels of membership. The first one is toe rings for $2 a month. You can join and get monthly horoscopes written by me. They're 100% fake, but also real if you believe in them, kind of like Tinkerbell. And
I was expecting that.
And then our second level is anklets for $5 a month. Anklets get those horoscopes and also bi-weekly Dysfunction Junction bonus episodes. We talk about all sorts of things from Lisa Rinna's filmography to
To how much money it would take for us to give up a rib.
yeah. Oh, that's true.
To
That was a
be
good one.
barbecued and eaten by another person.
Yeah. I mean, really, I don't care what they do with it if they pay, frankly.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I would agree with that.
yeah. So, and then the third level of membership is our Limbo Champions. For $10 a month, you get all of those benefits, plus you get ad-free episodes every week, and you get added to our close friends list on Instagram. And you can check out our merch store at, do you want to say it?
Billy!
/ankle-high merch. That's bit.ly/ankle-high merch, all one word. And you can follow us on Instagram at @thebarsankle-high. We will be having a 10,000 download giveaway once we hit that mark.
We're so close.
So yeah, make sure you're following us because that's where it'll be announced. That's where I'll be tallying the votes or whatever your entries from. I won't be tallying it from Facebook or anything. So make sure you're following us on Instagram. And oh yeah, leave us a 5-star review wherever you want and can, especially if you can write out a review. That's like what really helps get us more exposure. It sounds silly, but it takes like 45 seconds.
And it's working because people are definitely hearing about us organically instead of like through someone else.
Yeah, so we have a lot of new listeners. Welcome.
Welcome.
And yeah, so those are all the ways to keep in touch with us until next Thursday when we hear more about depression. Womp womp. It's like surround sound.
That's great.
But in the meantime, check in on your friends. And
Be nice to yourself.
yeah. And
Take your meds.
take your meds. And, sometimes just touch grass.
Yeah.
Because the bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Bye.